Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. New Supergirl Season 2 takeoff footage, Man of Steel style. We also got a whole bunch of stuff from the first couple of episodes, so let's break it down. Most of you probably remember this from the first Man of Steel trailer way back. It seems like a lifetime ago that that movie debuted. It's also kind of a nod to the Smallville Superman takeoff. This is the way that Clark would take off the few times that he did fly on that TV show. There were like times really early on where he briefly flew and then way later during the final season of the show, but really I think this is more of a reference to the Man of Steel trailer. But it's just a clever way for them to hype that Supergirl's now on the CW, show that it's getting a little bit more hardcore, just going to be a lot more fun. Like they've already dropped a whole bunch of Season 2 images, and there is a bunch of Superman pics, but I guess they're holding him for like the official big trailer. This is kind of like a teaser, but they kind of work up to that, like they'll slowly ramp up, like when they were getting ready to drop the Flash trailer. They dropped a couple teasers first, so Superman footage is around the corner, and we know a bunch about the first 2 episodes. We know that Cadmus Labs sends Metallo after both Superman and Supergirl. That's what creates the need for the team-up for Superman to leave Metropolis, because you have to imagine that there's disasters happening all over the world at all times, so Superman is understandably super busy, but will pop up throughout the season when there's an A-list problem or when it's Supergirl's turn to buy the donuts. And the other big thing is they're actually showing off Lena Luthor, played by Katie McGrath. So what they explain at Comic-Con, because then this raises a bunch of questions, you're like, hey, we have Luthor Corp, where's Lex Luthor? So they said, in this continuity, Lex Luthor, just like movie Lex Luthor, Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor, is in prison. So Lena Luthor, who was like the Tess Mercer character on Smallville, I'll explain that in a second, but she's stepped up and taken over Luthor Corp and wants to pull their name out of the mud, because it's still a multinational billion-dollar corporation. So she's definitely not as evil seeming as her brother. That doesn't mean that she won't butt heads with Supergirl and Superman, but you look at her here and she does look fantastically evil, like Merlin during Arrow Season 1. And if you've read Supergirl comics from like way back in the 90s, then you know that there was a version of Supergirl who hung out, was kind of like the boyfriend confidant of the red hair Lex Luthor. So maybe we'll see some deep cuts from that, but no idea if we're going to see any actual collaboration between Luthor Corp and Cadmus Labs. Cadmus Labs is supposed to be like the big bad of Season 2. So Metallo comes in the first episode. It's just kind of like the tip of the iceberg. Like, look at all the crazy toys we're going to unleash on Supergirl and Superman. So the title of the first episode is called The Adventures of Supergirl. That's also the name of the comic book that they're doing right now. Like they started a new Supergirl comic that tied in with the TV show called The Adventures of Supergirl. And there's also a Supergirl Rebirth comic that's a little more in keeping with the tone of the TV show, even though it's not quite the same thing. Like the comics will always be their own separate thing, but there'll always be a lot of Easter eggs in the TV show for stuff that's happening. So The Adventures of Supergirl is the title of episode 1. The title of episode 2, The Last Children of Krypton, is actually a riff on a Superman title written by Jeff Johns and Superman director Richard Donner. That's right, Richard Donner actually wrote a Superman comic book with Jeff Johns. So it was called The Last Son of Krypton. So now we have 2 kids, so it's like The Last Children of Krypton, so you understand. You can read that, but obviously they're not going to do exact comic book plot. They always change little things, but sometimes it's fun if you know they're doing like a specific comic book title to go and read that to see what kind of Easter eggs they're going to do from that story. But also in keeping with that theme, you guys probably know that Kevin Smith is doing an episode of Season 2. It's titled Supergirl Lives, and he said when he found out he started to cry because that was actually based on the title of his failed Superman script called Superman Lives. Like he had written a treatment of a Superman movie way before Man of Steel ever happened. So we know Kevin Smith cries about everything, but it's just really touching the links they're going to in Season 2 to do comic book Easter egg things for really big stuff that's happened in Superman and Supergirl's history. So I know everybody's waiting to see actual footage of Season 2. We're within the 1-month window of Supergirl dropping, like it drops October 10th. So there'll be little stuff like this happening every week. I would expect like a full big trailer in the next week or 2. Definitely something big going to happen when the Flash and Arrow premiere, because they premiere the week before Supergirl, so they're probably going to use that to also promote all the other DC shows on the CW. So a whole bunch of stuff is happening. Supergirl hype train taking off. There is a new round of the DC giveaway too. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this video. What's going to happen next is Robert Downey Jr. posted like the most teasery picture that you could possibly tease of a Marvel project. But you have the Russos that are doing Infinity War, and you have Kevin Feige, who's kind of like the godfather of all Marvel films. So them, Jon Favreau, who's the longtime Iron Man director, meeting just means that they are planning larger things beyond Spider-Man Homecoming and Infinity War. So I'll do a video for that next. I should post later tonight. While you guys wait for all the Iron Man 4 stuff to post, you can click here for my Avengers Infinity War behind the scenes video, and you can click here for all my other Spider-Man Homecoming. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.